Email is the most effective marketing channel on earth. Email is the opposite of dead. Any company that says email doesn't work for them is just doing it wrong.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about email marketing today that marketers just need to stop believing?
I think people think that it's hard to do and that it's complicated and that they spend too much time like, okay, is this right? Did I get it right? Is everything in this thing right? And then they finally hit send and like get it out the door and they're like, oh, thank God they got it out. It's like, who cares? Just send it. Perfection is the enemy of progress.
On today's episode of Marketing Over Chai, I am thrilled to welcome the leading email marketing voice and the leading voice on digital strategy. He's the founder of subjectline.com, the creator of Guru Media, the host of the Do This Not That podcast. You guessed it. I have Jay Schwedelson, and we're discussing email marketing today. Welcome, Jay. I'm so excited to have you here on Marketing Over Chai.
I'm excited to be here. This is gonna be fun. I checked out some episodes of that you've done, and it's a great show. So I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
Let's get started. Tell us about your career journey and what led you to choose email marketing.
I've had an advertising agency for a long time, and over 25 years. And the first few years of my agency, I struggled because I would try to tell clients, potential clients, that I did work in all sorts of different areas. I would tell them I do digital media and print and email and direct mail, and I did everything. And I wouldn't get any business, and I struggled. And I realized that I was trying to be known for everything. And when I took a step back, I said, it's really hard to be known for everything because nobody knows why they should work with you. So a zillion years ago, I said, you know what? I'm going to try to be known for something. I said, I'm going to try to be known for email because email is really just starting to explode. And so I said, how am I going to become known for email marketing? I said, I need a special website. So I started a website called subjectline.com, which is free. It's still free, where people can go to subjectline.com and they can put in their subject line and it tells them it's good or bad. And it gives them a score and all this stuff. And then over time, it allowed my agency to become known as specialists in the world of email marketing. And the truth is, email marketing is less than 50% of the revenue of my businesses, but my agency is known for that because we decided we had to be known for something. And that's really helped a lot because what happens is people come into our agency to work with us because of email, and then they start working with us on all the other things that we do. So I'm a big believer that being known for something in whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's a career, it's your business, it's really important.
That's actually the point I'm at in the business I'm trying to set up, because in the beginning I was like, let's just do social media and help everybody with that. But I am realizing that when I take this broad approach, everything becomes really crowded really quickly and really competitive really quickly. So
Yes.
I'm going to use those pearls of wisdom and like narrow down and focus on maybe just podcasting or like one particular thing that I can help people out with. Over the years of your career journey, what has been some of the most surprising lessons you've learned?
When I started out my career, I would call myself a relatively quiet person. I'm not somebody that I know it seems odd now. Here I am on a podcast, but I was not the person who would kind of be out there talking. I would kind of be a little bit shy, and I just didn't like it. I didn't like going to a cocktail party trying to have to meet people. I just didn't like it. And I quickly learned that if I was not going to go broke, I had to get really comfortable doing the things I didn't really like doing. I get really comfortable kind of being uncomfortable, being more out there, speaking, talking, networking. And so it was an important lesson for me. And has served me really, really well. But in my regular life, when I'm not in work mode, I'm a pretty quiet dude. And one of I guess the lesson that I learned is that when somebody's like, oh no, I don't like doing that. I don't post on social media. I'm very quiet, whatever. That's great, but that's not going to get you to where you want to go. So sometimes you have to do the very thing that you may not think is your thing.
Yeah, I think like that is a constant challenge, and that is the way to grow, right? Like getting out of that comfort zone, or
Yes.
accepting the struggle, embracing the struggle. And
Yes.
of course, easier said than done, sounds a lot fancier. But doing that, like for me, it was vulnerability and being vulnerable online, sharing my story very honestly, because parts of it are things that I really want to talk about. But there are those other parts that are not as comfortable to talk about, right? Like doing this in the middle of a job search. For some reason, it's just full of shame when it shouldn't be. It's just part of
Oh
it.
yeah.
So just embracing that and like sharing that with everybody it's been growth. Like for me, like I've learned. I feel like I've grown. I hope I have.
Well, no, and everybody is going through stuff. Everybody, and that's how you connect with people is, sharing what you're going through, and everyone can relate. The people that are just pretending everything's perfect, they got it all figured out. Doesn't matter how much money you got, how big of a company you're at, doesn't matter. Nobody has it all figured out. They're just lying. And those are people that you really can't, get to know, or you want to get to know because they're not being real.
Wow. That is so true, and that is definitely like something worth remembering. I want to move to my next section, which I call the icebreaker, which is and this time we're going to do an email marketing myth or must do. I'm going to throw a line at you, and you can tell us if it's a myth or a must do, and you can tell us a little bit of why you think that is. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Email marketing is dead. You keep hearing that. What do you think?
It's totally dead. Everyone should stop emailing. It's over. Email is over. No one's doing it anymore.
Unless they
I
want
hope it's
business, I
not
guess.
dead or else I'm in big trouble. Email is the opposite of dead. Any company that says email doesn't work for them is just doing it wrong. Right? Email is the most effective marketing channel on earth. There's over 4 billion people that have email addresses, right? And to me, in any business, whether it's a personal brand, a company, whatever, the most valuable asset you have is your email database because there's no other way to communicate with your entire audience and your entire community at one time other than your email list. So you need to be intentional about growing your list every single day because it's probably the most important thing that you could do for your brand or for yourself.
I totally agree with that. And I think like another point that people don't realize, like you'll have a lot of people fight you and say that, social media is catching up, people spend more time there and that's where you should be putting your money. But I'd argue that everything in my inbox gets my attention. Everything on social media doesn't. I'm just like scrolling through and it's most of it is just like white noise at some point, right? So that's something that I think businesses need to like think about, or anyone who thinks email marketing is dead needs to think about.
I agree.
So the next one is email should always focus on a call to action. Myth or must do?
No, I think that's total garbage. And the reason I think it's total garbage is that you have offers, you have things that you want people to take advantage of course, right? But you really need to establish yourself and your brand as a thought leader, as someone that recipient can rely on for something of value. And if all you're doing is asking the recipients that you're marketing to take an action because you want to get them to then take another action, then it's just a benefit to you. It's not a benefit to them. You need to provide value, thoughts, ideas, trends, information without you asking them to click through and fill out a form or do anything, because that's how you'll lay the groundwork for when you do have an offer and a call to action you want them to take advantage of, that they'll actually want to do it. So you can't get people to react to your call to actions without laying the groundwork ongoing, in my opinion.
I totally agree. And on that note, there's another thing which your emails do beautifully is build connection. When I read an email, and I'm sure it's sent to like so many people, I do feel like it was written for me. And that kind of a skill is and that kind of connection is your emails are never going to go to spam. They're always adding value. They feel human to human. And I think a lot of
Yes,
B2B spaces particularly forget that there's a human behind reading that email, right? And everything is so cookie cutter that you lose connection and then it kind of loses its purpose as well. Absolutely. Sending too many emails annoys subscribers. What do you think?
totally. And I think that what you're saying is very true, and it's going to become even more true as AI proliferates even more because the human element of everything we're doing is just getting diluted. And so being a human is going to allow you to stand out. But it's a matter of, to your point earlier, kind of stepping out of your comfort zone and being willing to be that human in the way that you write and communicate, and your brand writes and communicates. If you're just going to write generic garbage, then good luck to you. Sending too many emails that are irrelevant definitely annoys subscribers, but relevancy and frequency are married, right? You can send me an email every single day if it's got good stuff in there, right? If you send me an email every day telling me the new reality TV show that's premiering that night, I want that email every single day. Right. But if you send me an email every single day telling me about the art museums that are opening up in my neighborhood every day, I'm going to think it's super annoying because I just don't care because I'm the least cultural person on the planet. Right. So you need to be relevant to the audience that you're marketing to. And the relevancy of what you're sending allows you to be frequent. People think and marketers think that the way that they're going to be successful is by sending less email. They think, oh, we're annoying people. We're sending too much email. No, you're not sending too much. You're sending too much garbage. So in order to send more email, which is what you want to do, because that's how you get more business, you need to think about how can I be more relevant. That's my jam.
Hmm. And it's what you're sending, and it's also to whom you're sending. Like, I remember when I first worked with this company, we managed a bunch of email. Like, they had like 10 business units that they managed, and they wanted to send as much to as many people, and irrespective of whether it was relevant to everyone or not, because the audience were kind of different, right? So yeah, and I feel like a lot of people just think that more is better, but that may not always be the case.
Yeah, I agreed. Yeah, you got to be relevant. Number one.
This is a funny one. Subject lines don't matter.
Oh yeah, subject lines are irrelevant, obviously. Subject lines are kind of important. I will tell you, I think that in general, marketers have it all backwards because they spend all their time, energy, and resources making what's inside the email. They write the greatest newsletter, they look for the perfect images, everything they could do. And then the last thing they do is very quickly say, all right, well, what should my subject line be? And they spend little to no time on it. They rarely do testing. Is this one going to do better than this one? And the reality of it is, if the email doesn't get opened, who cares? Who cares what you wrote? Who cares, about the imagery? Who cares about your copy? Any of it. So, and the littlest things in subject lines will have an impact on whether or not somebody opens up the email. So, yeah, I think subject lines are an underrated, really important thing. And the thing I don't think people think about enough is, which I think is so cool in marketing, when you send out an email, the subject line that you're sending out, the space that you have within somebody's inbox, that real estate, it is the exact same size as the real estate that Apple gets. It's the exact same size that Salesforce gets, that the NFL gets, that anybody gets. Everybody's on an equal playing field in the inbox in terms of that subject line field. And you have a head-to-head ability to go against the biggest brands in the world, and you could see who wins and can you get your email opened. And there's not many other things like that. You can't just run an ad for the Super Bowl. You don't have the budget. You might not be able to get that search ad because you can't buy those words, right? But that inbox is equal playing field. And for a marketer, to me, that's a really cool and exciting way to compete against other brands.
I love how you put that. I never ever thought of it like that. But yeah,
It's
that is
fun.
so empowering for any small business. Like, yeah, I love how you put that. Optimize for mobile. What do you think about that?
Well, over 70% of what they call primary opens, that's the first time somebody opens up an email, will occur on their mobile device. Meaning that 70% of the time, when they first check the email that you send, is going to be on a mobile device, right? So if you are crafting your emails and you're crafting them around a desktop version, you're crafting them around the version that the fewest amount of people are going to see, which is kind of backwards, right? So you should be a mobile first in terms of everything that you do, in terms of whether it's your website design, your emails, your social media, whatever it is. It should be mobile first, not desktop first, because that's how everyone's consuming everything.
Absolutely. The next one, unsubscribers are a good thing.
I don't, people get confused about unsubscribes. People unsubscribe for different reasons. Let's look at, when it's, let's say, the end of the year. A lot of, that's the highest unsubscribe time of the year for whether you're a business marketer or consumer marketer, because what are we all doing? We want to start the year out fresh. We want to have less clutter in our inbox. We want to stay more organized. So we're just unsubscribing from a lot of things. And it's not because that marketer sent one more email. It's because everybody collectively is trying to get organized, for that new year. So they're unsubscribing. Or let's say you're hunting for a new job and you've signed up with Indeed and ZipRecruiter and all the different stuff, and then you get a new job, okay, and then you don't need to be on these lists anymore. Do you no longer like those platforms like ZipRecruiter and Indeed? No, you just don't need that thing anymore. So people are unsubscribing not because necessarily of what it is that you're sending out, but because of what is going on with them or on the planet. And so to just look at the unsubscribe and say, oh, we sent this out, we got unsubscribes, we're doing something wrong, it's really not taking into account how the world really functions. The thing that you want to look at is spam complaints. If people are saying this is spam and clicking spam complaint, That's very different than unsubscribe. And an unsubscribe does not hurt your deliverability. It doesn't cause you to go to the junk folder or spam folder. So to me, unsubscribes are not a terrible thing at all.
Absolutely. The other funny, type of emails that you keep getting when just the nature of, the product is something that is a one-time purchase. And I found it really funny. Like after I got married, for the next 3 months, I kept getting a lot of ads for wedding dresses because I did spend a lot of time before that, researching that. So it's quite funny, but like it's just the nature of the product, right? Like you don't need more than one, hopefully.
Oh my God. I share my Amazon account. So I have two kids, my son and daughter. And my son doesn't do anything on Amazon. He doesn't know what's going on. My daughter, who's 17, she's on Amazon all the time looking at every ridiculous type of clothing item and cream and makeup and all this stuff. And so when I go on there, it's like there's nothing that I see that I want. I mean, it is like whatever. And it's just like sometimes these algorithms and everything that it's just too much. It's just a disaster. It's like you don't need a wedding dress. You've been married for 5 years. Like enough is enough.
Absolutely. The next one is A/B testing is a waste of time. Do you agree?
I mean, A/B testing is a waste of time if you like burning money. Every time you do any marketing, every time you hit send on an email, you do a social media ad, you do anything, you should be testing. Because if you're not testing, you're wasting that exposure, you're wasting that effort, you're wasting that time. And so when you're sending out that email, you should take half your audience, give them one subject line, and the other half give another, testing your call to action buttons, testing the time that you're sending out an email, testing the time you're doing that social media post, testing things on your website. You need to always be testing, always, because that's what we do. You constantly have to try to get better. And by the way, if you don't get better and things go badly with a test, that's good too, because then you know what not to do. So if you're not learning every time you do something, you're wasting your effort.
Absolutely. 100. And the last myth or must do, segment your audience. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake that everyone makes with segmentation is, of course, you should segment your audience, right? Oh, this is going to be my segment for people that just bought a home. This is going to be my segment for people that are senior level executives, vice president above. I'm going to segment this. These are people that are in the marketing community, whatever the segment is, right? You should not only be segmenting because we know that that's what really works well because then you could tailor your marketing to those audiences. But the thing that we should all be doing with our segmentation is then telling the audience that we just segmented who they are, right? So if you're going to do something, you segmented out a group of people in your database that love tennis for whatever reason, right? When you segment them out, you then want to tell them in your marketing that they are tennis people. So in their subject line, just for tennis enthusiasts. If it's a social media post, it's like for people who love tennis should be on that post. You don't want to just carve out the audience. You want to tell them who they are. This is popular in Miami for new grandparents, for people looking for a home, for people that are at enterprise level companies. You tell the person the segment that they are in, because the sooner you tell somebody who they are, the quicker that it is that they want to engage. So the mistake about segmentation is not whether or not you should segment or not. It's yes, of course you should, but then you have to tell them that they're part of that segment.
Absolutely. I love this tip. What do you think is the biggest misconception about email marketing today that marketers just need to stop believing?
I think people think that it's hard to do and that it's complicated and that they spend too much time like, okay, is this right? Did I get it right? Is everything in this thing right? Did I get the subject line right? Am I sending the right time of day? Did I write the right copy? Is my button look right? Is it all right? And I don't know, I don't know. And they waste all this time and energy, and then they finally hit send and like get it out the door, and they're like, oh, thank God they got it out. It's like, who cares? Just send it. If it, it's like who perfection is the enemy of progress.
I
Okay.
love that.
We want to get to a level of good. You don't need to be great. Get to a level of good, hit send, do it again tomorrow, and keep on going. I think that there's too much energy spent. No one remembers, nobody cares. Here's the secret about email. Very rarely will anybody get over a 50% open rate on an email they send.
Hmm.
An open rate is the percentage of people opening up your email. So every time you hit send on email, the majority of people that you're sending to are not even going to see it. They're not going to open it. They're not going to care. So who cares? Get on to the next one. Just do it. Stop with the perfection. That's my jam.
I love that. And I've just learned that recently when I started YouTube. I am my own biggest critic, right? So like every time I would edit my video, I was like, this can't go out, this can't go out. Until one day I was like, you know what, just send.
Who cares?
And yeah, who cares? Nobody cares. And if they do
Nobody.
care, and if I do go viral for the wrong reasons, I'm still going viral and I'm still gonna earn. So like just do it anyway. It's just like, but yeah, nobody really
No,
cares.
nobody cares about anything. And I also block people all day long, and I really don't care. I'll put something out on LinkedIn and I will get negative whatever, and I just go block, 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 and they're dead to me. I just don't care.
Yeah, that is like my favorite feature on LinkedIn for sure.
I think I block somebody every day.
Oh, wow. No, I'm not that famous yet, but goals, goals, Jay,
I
goals.
just don't like people, so I just block them all the time.
Oh my God. Okay. Why should businesses take email marketing more seriously?
First of all, it's the most cost-effective channel on the planet. If you go ahead and you post something on social media, your company page, your personal page, at best 15% of your followers will see it because the algorithm. So in order for them to everybody to see it, you need to do paid social media, which is super expensive.
Hmm.
Search engine stuff, same gig. How good is your SEO? Not great. So you have to do paid search ads, which is very, very expensive.
Hmm.
But when you want to send to your entire email database, it costs you like almost nothing. So it is the most cost effective marketing channel on the planet, and something that you can control what you send and when you send it. So
Hmm.
if it's not prioritized within your company, consumer or business marketing, I think you are failing.
Absolutely. How do you tie in email with larger social strategies or larger marketing strategies in general? Because everyone's got social going on, we've got events going on, we've got a lot of things happening when it comes to marketing, and how, especially in larger organizations, when you have different units looking after each of these, how do you tie it in all together? Like, what's your secret there?
And it is all together, right? It is where it's not should I do email or social media. It's we need to be doing all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because in the world of marketing now, one of the things that drives me crazy about marketing is attribution, where we ran this search ad, somebody clicked on it, they then filled out our form and they become a customer. It's because that we ran that search ad. And to me, that's nonsense. And we live in a world now where, it's surround sound. Right, where I saw Jay speak here, I got this email from Jay, I saw a social media post he did, and then 3 months later, that person might have a need for something I do, and they're going to remember that they have seen me a bunch of places. And the last thing they do is they might click on, a social media ad that we ran, and they didn't become a customer because of that ad. They became a customer because of everything else that's been leading up to that.
Mm-hmm.
So email has to be a core component and an ongoing component of the overall strategy. Organizations that are siloed, email lives over here, socials over here, search is over there, and they're not kind of like all kind of push in the same direction. I think that's a recipe for failure because everything supports the other one.
Absolutely. What trends do you see shaping the future for email and just like marketing in general in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think there's going to be more and more generic garbage. There's going to be more and more automated streams of email. And the good news, bad news is that because automation is getting so easy and AI is making it so easy to create content, whatever, which is terrible. The good news is that those individuals and those brands and those personal brands that have that human element, they're going to stand out that much more because the overwhelming majority of emails that are out there are going to be basic, generic, and epically boring. So the people that aren't epically boring, I think, will be at a serious advantage. But we are entering an age of total automation, generic nonsense.
I like how you call that nonsense. I completely agree. So at one point, I realized somebody was commenting on my LinkedIn posts. But they were commenting like definitely with an AI tool, or they were like using ChatGPT. And at one point, I was like, I know I'm having a conversation with a machine. This is not a person. This is like, it's technically relevant, but it makes no sense. And it was just garbage, right? At the end of the day. So I'm very interested to see what these AI emails will be like, because I bet they will have the technical knowledge of like what they need to connect with me on, but they're not human at the end of the day. So that connection is going to be missing, and I think it's gonna show itself in like a lot of like, it's gonna be laughed at for sure, and it's gonna like, I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to the humor in them. I don't think they're going to be effective, but like they are going to be humorous for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, and to me, it's like, that's why when I send out a newsletter, I'll talk about whatever TV shows I'm watching or whatever I'm eating or whatever stupid stuff I'm involved with because there's no way that that's not AI is not able to do that. I mean, and for you, it's like, okay, I moved here, 5 years ago. Here's the, here's something new I learned. I can't believe that they do that here in Canada. This is so weird, and that's AI proof, right? You can't have AI is not gonna be able to do that, and that's what makes everybody, the unique aspects of our everybody's journey is what's interesting. That's it.
Absolutely. So AI is going to be one of these, but what are the other most common mistakes you see marketers making with regards to campaigns?
With regard to what?
To email campaigns, or just in general? Yeah.
Not just campaigns, but I think email marketing in general, every brand, every company, every person, everybody uses platforms to send out their stuff. Whatever platform could be Constant Contact or MailChimp or HubSpot or whatever to send out whatever they're doing. And what I see over and over again is that people are paying money to use these platforms and they don't really know the power of the platforms that they have access to and what they're actually paying for. And the majority of brands and individuals are using probably 20% of the capabilities of what it is that they're paying for. And so within my own organizations, about twice a year, we have a meeting with every vendor of ours in our MarTech stack. And we say, share with us everything that we have available to us for what we are paying for. And almost every single time we're like, well, I didn't know we could do that. That's so cool because all these platforms are continually updating stuff. Now we
Absolutely.
can do SMS and now you could tie your email in with a LinkedIn post or who knows what.
Hmm.
And so the quickest way you want to get a promotion at your company, just go to whomever and say, hey, I want to go to everybody in our MarTech stack and I want to get them to demo for us what we already have access to. And I want to report back to the higher ups all the different features that we're not using that won't cost us a dollar and why we should be using them. And you will get a promotion because it costs nothing and you're sitting on it and nobody's using it. And that's a fail for all the different companies that are out.
That's that's a very deep insight. I'm sure a lot of our viewers are gonna run with that and
They
thank
should.
you later. What are three actionable tips for improving email open rates and click-throughs?
Some quick wins. So in your subject line, I would always think about, nobody reads the whole subject line. They don't. They read the first few characters and the first word or two. So I'd always think about what is at the start of your subject line. So for example, if you start your subject line with an actual number, the 7 things you need to know, the 3 pitfalls to avoid, an actual number at the start of your subject line, it'll lift your open rates by about 15% or so just by starting with a number because it stands out just a little bit. If you capitalize all the letters in a word, like the word new, NEW, if you capitalize each letter, NEW, at the start of your subject line, or it's just released, you capitalize that entire phrase. Capitalizing the first word or two words will also give you that boost in terms of performance and using a number or capitalization or emojis or question marks or any of that stuff, it does not cause you to go to the junk folder. That's a myth, right? This idea of spam trigger words or special characters, that's not why you go to the junk folder. It used to be the case 10 years ago. So I would test those things. And then inside the email, the call to action buttons, the actual rectangular buttons that you put in your emails, the words on those buttons have a huge impact on performance, right? So if you're trying to get somebody to, register for a webinar and you put on that button the word register, that's terrible. Nobody wants to register for anything, right? Instead, if you write it in first person, we see click through rates rise over 20%, where instead of register, it might say save my spot. Instead of register, it might say I want in. And if it's a
Hmm.
sale, instead of saying, buy now, which who wants to do that? It's get my 25% off now. You make it a benefit to the person, not a benefit to you, the sender. And those things can have a huge impact on your overall performance.
It's definitely all about the audience. I completely agree. Speaking of the audiences, the other really cool thing that you do and that I attended was the Guru conferences, and I know you do like Delivered and you do Eventastic, and they're fantastic because I have never seen that level of like connection and engagement on a virtual event that you guys were able to do. I don't know what your thought process is and how I really wish I could be in the room, just like fly on the wall and see how that happens. So just for context, if you haven't been to that already, it was fun and it was virtual. And even though you were, at home, logged in, if you were part of that conference, you weren't doing other work or you weren't multitasking at that time because it was that engaging. The
It's
sessions
nice.
were informative, everyone was taking notes. We also had a group outside later where we were sharing notes, so I know everyone was taking it and it was
Oh,
not just
cool.
the nerdy me. But it was so engaging. And the other thing that's very hard to do virtually is like allow for network connection. People do that. They let you like share your LinkedIn, but no one's really talking. When I came out of this one, people were talking. I actually made friends who came on the podcast and who like reached out later.
Cool.
And exactly, like it felt so human. And I have never seen that at any other conference, virtual one especially. Walk us through how you managed to do that.
Oh, that's very kind of you. I really do appreciate you saying that because that is our goal. So it's really cool to hear you say that. So yeah, we have a bunch of conferences. The one that you're talking about that we did recently was called Guru Conference, which you could see it at guruconference.com. And that one was a 2-day event all about email marketing. We had about 24,000 people at that, and it's free. Let's start with that. And our goal is the reason we started these events was we think virtual events are just terribly boring. And we was like, there's got to be a better way. And so we always try to come at it of number one, we have to provide really great content. People have to learn stuff. But whether it's a giant virtual event, because I know a lot of people are not going to put on a virtual conference with 25,000 people. If you're doing, a webinar for 30 people, if you are just doing a meeting with 7 people on a Zoom or whatever it may be, people get bored very, very, very fast. And people want to connect, people want to feel human. So whenever you're bringing people together virtually, it has to be front and center in your brain is, okay, what am I going to do to make this engaging? Nobody just wants to be talked at the whole time. And so when you make that your North Star and you're like, okay, we know we're going to have great content. Cool. We got a good speaker, whatever. Okay. What else are we going to do? What are we going to layer in there? How are we going to get people to network? What are we going to make this fun? How are we going to gamify this? Maybe we're going to give out some swag. Maybe we're going to do some trivia. Maybe we're going to do something to get people energized about it. And also, you want to break it up. When you go to these things and you're signing up for a webinar and the webinar is an hour long, you're like, oh, this is terrible, right? You want to have maybe just 20-minute modules and 5 minutes in between where you're doing something fun and interesting in between. And then you also want to make sure everybody networks when you're putting on that little event. Okay, before we get started, let's all connect with each other and everybody put in there what you're most interested in. And all of a sudden, okay, I know this person's interested in that, this person is that. And when you make it your focus, it changes everything. Right. And that's what we try to do with our events. And we do have the craziest meetings of all time where there's no idea that's too stupid. And we just try to come up with whatever is the craziest ideas that we could possibly come up with. And also, how do we get more people to network? I will tell you, honestly, our biggest thing is we're going to try to solve it this year. We think we could do a much better job with networking. Networking virtually is very, very, very hard. And we're putting a lot of energy in trying to figure out how to do a better job of that because I don't think that we haven't cracked the code yet.
Yeah, but it's still like way higher than any other virtual event I've ever been to. So,
Thank you.
but yeah, I mean, I admire how you keep striving for perfection because yeah, okay.
Thank you.
I'm gonna stop rambling. Sorry. Tell us, okay, sorry. How do you keep such a wide array of marketers engaged and excited year after year?
That it's tough. I will tell you, it is tough to try to cover a topic and do an event, and then because everyone comes to any event, they sign up for a webinar, or maybe they listen to a podcast, or they sign up for a newsletter, and every time somebody does that, they're hoping that you talk about that thing that's interesting to them.
Hmm.
They have a pain point, they have an issue that they're hoping that you're going to help them solve with the information that you're sharing. And it doesn't matter what you're putting on, a virtual conference, a newsletter, a podcast, a webinar. That's another thing you have to always really think about. One of the things that we started doing, and I'm actually I think it's a podcast that we're releasing tomorrow, as a matter of fact, my podcast. One of the things that we're doing a lot now is using free form fields in our registration path, where when people register for whatever it is that we're doing, we ask them, what is it that hope to get out of this, or what's something we could do that would be really cool, and we allow people to write in whatever they want. And these free form fields are really growing in use because it was really hard to take people's responses to free form fields and do anything with that information because it'd be all over the place. But now with AI, what we are doing, what a lot of people are doing is they're taking these submissions into these free form fields and they're plugging it into ChatGPT and saying, hey, synthesize this, give me the top 5 trends, the top 5 most common things, the whatever. And it gives you the ability to take this, real-time feedback. That's not these boring surveys, right? Surveys are terrible. Give a score, 1 out of 10. Do you like this? It's like, what do you do with it? Who cares? Where you can take real information that are people giving you and real ideas. And so I'm a big fan of these idea of these free form fields and being very intentional about getting feedback and direction from the people that you are talking with. It's like your YouTube, right? You send an email, hey, go to this forum. What else would you like us to talk about? What's interesting to you? Whatever, and you'll be shocked. You're like, wow, I didn't even know that that was a thing, and we're going to talk about that. That's a great idea, because sometimes it's hard to come up with new content.
Absolutely. Um, you have worked on like thousands and thousands of email campaigns, amongst other things. And what's the one most memorable subject line that you have read or wrote?
Well, we've screwed up a lot of subject lines, and sometimes subject lines where we've screwed up have done the best, which is crazy. And I wouldn't recommend this at all, but we've sent out campaigns that had no subject line, which have done great. We sent out subject lines. Actually, we wrote the word subject line by accident in the subject line, which did great. It's like, it's just ridiculous. Sometimes the stuff that is completely a mess does really, really well. And my favorite emails are when brands screw up and then they send out a follow-up email that says, oops, we messed up. Check this out. And ironically, those emails, the ones where brands screw up and says, oops, so sorry, blah, blah, they have the highest open rate of any emails that go out from anybody. Because we're all horrible people. And all we want to see is, how did this big brand screw up? So we could open it up and laugh at them and go, ha, 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 ha. So yeah, sometimes those mistakes are do really, really well.
Yeah. I mean, mistakes are like another universal thing, right? So it feels good to know you're not the only
Yes.
one messing up.
Well, everybody screws up royally,
Absolutely.
100%.
Jay, what do you do to stay so creative and innovative? Like, what's your secret?
I have no secret whatsoever. First of all, I do listen to a lot of podcasts. I will tell you, I think that people don't listen to enough different podcasts. What I mean by that is, and you know this better than anybody that has a podcast puts a lot of energy into the podcast. They think a lot about what the episode be about, they think about the content, they think about what they're going to say. It doesn't matter if you have 50 downloads or you have 50 million downloads. Anybody that's putting a podcast out there really is trying. And the reason I say that is, every single week I try to listen to 5 podcasts I've never listened to before, all over, the big, small, doesn't matter. And I'm listening for everything. How do they do it? How do they intro it? How do they ask questions? What do they say? Everything, because I learn. I learn what not to do or what I want to do. And the reason I try 5 new ones every week is because everybody's trying. And it's so interesting to me to see how other people are just giving it their best effort. And I don't think people try enough to listen to more podcasts, because you're talking about the greatest marketers on the planet, the greatest executives on the planet are putting out podcasts. There's like 4 million podcasts or something out there. And to not take advantage of this free content that you could listen to and absorb is bananas to me. So that's something I try to force myself to do every Saturday and Sunday. I wake up crazy early and I go and I do like a 3-mile run every Saturday and Sunday. I hate it. I'm the slowest runner in the world. And I just load up on podcasts, and that's what I do for about an hour or so every Saturday and Sunday.
Wow. Yeah. I listen to a lot of them, but they're mostly like with a pen and paper and me taking notes. But yeah, I haven't really like ventured out of a space. It's always like within this business field. But I think like what do you do, like 5 new ones that you haven't heard of before? I think I should do that. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, and a lot of times you're learning, oh my God, this is the worst podcast I've ever listened to. And you're like, this is terrible. They have too many ads. The person's audio is terrible, or their intro is hard. Whatever it is, you're like, okay, I got to make sure I don't do that. Right. You're learning, whether it's good or bad, you're learning something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Before we close, like if you had to leave marketers with like one piece of advice, what would it be?
I guess it would be 2 things. One is get uncomfortable. If you're not uncomfortable, then you're not trying. I think that if you want to connect with people, anybody, pretty much you can, right? And so if you want to, let's say, for example, you're really trying to break into the category or whatever it may be, find the 50 thought leaders in that category. And I don't mean finding, Mark Cuban. I mean finding people that maybe they have 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. They don't have a half a million, right? And then make it a point on their posts for 90 days to comment something intelligent and ask questions on their posts for 90 days, whatever. And then after a month or two, drop them a connection request with a custom note, always with a custom note saying, I love your content. Hope you've been seeing me interact. I can't wait to see what else you do. And then all of a sudden, you're going to turn around after a few months, and you're going to be connected with some of the brightest minds in the industry that you are in, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's just a little bit of effort, and then just be consistent whatever you do. If you're going to post on social media, which I think you should, post on there, 3 or 4 times a week, and don't stop. Don't stop after a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year. Just never stop. Whatever it is that you do, just keep doing it, because I'm not that smart, and what I've learned is that you can beat 95% of people, even if you're not that smart, just by being consistent. And that's, to me, like the secret sauce of success is being consistent.
Wow, that is beautiful. I'm taking notes and I'm going to be practicing these things. The LinkedIn tip is like, wow, I'm surprised I hadn't thought of that before. But yeah, I am going to be trying that out.
It works, and it doesn't work with everybody, but you know what? If I see somebody on my posts that for months is, commenting and asking questions, I'm interacting with, and they drop me a connection request, 100%, I'll connect with whoever that is. It's amazing. Thank you for taking the time. It's like amazing.
And we live in a world where we can do that. Like we have LinkedIn. It's so
100%.
easy to do that. You can find whoever you want and build that, attempt to build that.
100%. I agree.
That's fantastic. So before we go, I want you to talk about, what you're doing right now and what's happening with Guru, with Eventastic, and whatever you'd like to.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, well, I still got my podcast I'm putting out there way too much. So do this, not that for marketers. We put out 5 episodes a week, which is out of control. It stresses me out. So check that out. We got our free website, subjectline.com, which is fun if you're into marketing. Go check that out. And then our newest event is called Eventastic. It's virtual, it's free, eventastic.com. And that is going to be a giant event that's about all things events, in-person events, small events, virtual events, webinars, anywhere where people gather. We're going to be talking about how to get people there, how to make it interesting, how to do public speaking, how to get sponsorships, everything. And that's going to be in June, and that's virtual and free. So all sorts of chaos going on, as always. And I really do appreciate you having me on. You're doing great with this podcast. Don't stop. And yeah, this has been fun.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. Honestly, I can't believe this happened. I woke up at 4 a.m. because I was so excited.
Oh
And I
no,
usually
you're
don't wake
tired.
up that early. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this. It really means so much to me. I can't believe I had all this time to, pick your brain, and you've been so
Yeah.
kind.
Well, thanks for including me. And, I'm looking forward to talking more and staying connected with your audience, and keep up the great work.
Absolutely. I'll share links to all that Jay just mentioned in the show notes. So you guys can feel free to go check it out, and I'll leave a link to his LinkedIn profile as well. So you can go connect with him if you haven't already. Thank you, Jay.